Welcome, everybody, to CSM Mastermind. I'm Andrew Marks, co-founder of Success Hacker on our Success Coaching Training Program. We're back for our monthly live webcast today talking about aligning and managing customer expectations, definitely one of customer success manager superpowers. This learning opportunity is brought to you by Success Coaching, the world leader in customer success professional development training. With more than 36,000 students from nearly 100 different countries, our skills development platform is making an impact across the globe. Whether you prefer self-paced learning, an instructor-led bootcamp, an interactive workshop, or a personalized weekly coaching program, our wide range of customer-focused programs and formats are tailored to meet the unique needs and learning preferences of everyone. If you're eager to level up your customer-facing skills, don't miss out on these amazing learning opportunities that can truly transform your professional journey. We're now accepting registrations for our outcome-based selling, change management, our CCSM Level 1 and Level 2 bootcamps, and our upcoming fall 12-week coaching programs that I deliver in partnership with the University of San Francisco. It's one of my favorite products. I get to sit and talk to you and meet with you on a weekly basis and really help connect the dots between what you're learning and how to apply it in your world. Ashley has dropped some links to our program page and any coupons that we're offering right now in chat. And you can find out more about all of our programs and workshops, our events, and all the other great content that we have at your disposal at successcoaching.co. Now, this CSM Mastermind series is a live and unscripted discussion where we dig into a single topic relevant to customer success. No matter where you work, what your role is, or who your customers are, we've got you covered. A few housekeeping items before we get going. This webinar is recorded. We'll be posting a replay and a transcript on our website early next week. We encourage active participation, so please feel free to ask your questions using that Q&A button located at the bottom of your Zoom interface. Now, questions with higher upvotes will receive priority during the Q&A session. So make sure that there's a question there that you really want to hear an answer to. Use that upvote button because those are the ones I'm going to start with. For our LinkedIn Live audience, you can also post your questions directly, and they will be relayed to us. Thank you, Santana, for monitoring that. To maintain a smooth discussion, please use the chat window exclusively for commentary. So if you have something to say about something one of the guests has had to say or me, please put that in chat while using or directing your questions to the Q&A window. Now, there's a bunch of thought leadership out there along with loads of theories on how to deliver customer success. But in this series, we're going to focus on practical real-world advice, best practices, techniques, and shared experiences from those who are actually doing customer success day in and day out. And now to make that happen, we've invited three amazing panelists to join me for a roundtable discussion. These are folks who are really damn good at what they do. And we're going to ask them to spill the beans on their experiences and their perspectives. So without further ado, I want our panelists to introduce themselves to y'all, share a little bit about who they are and what they do. And let's get started as usual in alphabetical order with Alex.
Hey everybody, my name is Alex Glick. I'm a Senior Strategic Customer Success Manager at Samsara. I've spent the better part of almost 8 years in the MarTech, sales engagement, and revenue intelligence world. And over the last 5 months, made the transition to Samsara, where I help Fortune 100 companies across transportation, logistics, and field services increase company safety, efficiency, and sustainability for their operations. Really, really excited to be back and be a part of such a great group today and anticipate some really good dialogue.
Awesome. And you are an unabashed Green Bay Packers fan, as you and I talk about every time I see you. And I also see you've got the PlayStation 5, so we should probably get on and do some Madden football. And,
Come on, man.
And my Niners against your Packers. But here's what I wanted, the little hint I gave you earlier. I pulled this out of a box. I don't know if you can see this, but that is a Tom Brady rookie card.
That's nice.
That I got a 9.5 grade on, and I found it in one of my boxes. I'm like, wow, that belongs in the safe.
I was about to say
but
that.
I knew you would appreciate this little piece of sports memorabilia. So
good pull by you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that was a pull. That was a pull out of a pack.
Love it.
So yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alex. Thanks again for making the time. And Alex, along with the rest of my guests, are all veterans of this webinar series. So this should be a good conversation. All right, Dimple, you're up.
All right. Thanks. Thanks so much, Andrew. Hey everyone, my name is Dimple Billimoria, and I'm a principal customer success manager at HubSpot. Been here for about 3.5 years and was just recently promoted to the principal role. And I've been in customer success for the past decade. I've worked for various different companies. I would say, starting from ad technology startups for the most part, and then just recently, over the last 3.5 years, I've been at HubSpot. At HubSpot as an organization, we really pride ourselves in offering a series of business softwares that can really help you understand where your customers are in their life cycle stage, be able to deliver messages that are at the right stage to the right person through email marketing. We also offer a very robust sales software as well as service software for after a contact has become a customer. So to be able to manage them and be able to measure customer sentiment as well. So very excited and really enjoy my role at HubSpot, and excited to share my thoughts on today's topic.
Awesome. And we just discovered that you and I have a mutual connection, a former CFO. So it's such a small business out there. We're huge fans of HubSpot. We have been using HubSpot to run our business for 5-6 years. We took advantage of the small business pricing, and we were grateful that HubSpot had that for startups, and we've been very happy with the product. So you definitely are in a great place, and congrats once again for getting that principal promotion. Good for you. And last but certainly not least, joining us from the Middle East late in the evening, Mohammed.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me again. My name is Mohammed Alqaq. I'm from Jordan. I'm the founder of Customer Success Middle East Community, a community that aims to empower and enhance customer success professional and practices in the Middle East. And the ultimate goal is to redefine the customer success within the Middle East region. I've been in the customer-facing role for the last 20 years. I've worked locally, regionally, and with international practices. I manage international team. And I've done customer success before even the title exists. And talking about the title, usually I like to call myself the customer success maestro, because customer success managers, they are the maestro. They are the one who orchestrate all the stakeholders, all the playmakers, all the musicians to produce a fine tone that customers will enjoy listening to and feel satisfied. So I believe we are maestros, and we should continue to believe that we are maestros and orchestrate all the stakeholders within the company and outside the company.
I love that. I love that analogy. I've actually used it myself in the past. Very much so. Very much the maestro. You are in this role. You're coordinating everything. You're at the center of it all, right? So, and as I mentioned during our prep call, you want to set something up. I'd be happy to participate in a virtual meetup for the Middle East, even if I got to get up real early in the morning. I've done it before, so we should talk about that if we can come up with something.
Absolutely.
Some sort of conversation. So, once again, though, we all appreciate your time today. So now let's get to the topic at hand. Let's kick off our discussion with provocative thought. Could over-delivering on customer expectations actually be harmful to your business? We often hear about the importance of exceeding customer expectations, but what if this approach is setting us up for failure in the long run? I mean, are we creating problems for ourselves? By consistently over-delivering, we might be inadvertently raising the bar to unsustainable levels, creating a cycle of escalating demands that we can't maintain. I've experienced it. I've talked to customer success teams that are like under all this pressure, and it's because they created that problem themselves, right? And let's not forget the age-old adage that the customer is always right, a concept that still holds sway in some part of the world. So today we'll challenge some of these conventional pearls of wisdom and explore how a more balanced, culturally aware approach to expectation management can lead to healthier, more sustainable customer relationships across various global markets. So let's get started at square one. How do you initially identify, understand, and document customer expectations?
Yeah, I'll kick off. I think the earlier you get involved, the better. Getting involved either during implementation when possible or align cross-functionally with your seller or ICs to better understand what was sold. Ask for decks that were used, ask for recordings that were had during that sales cycle all the way through implementation, and take a lot of notes. I had the opportunity to be in sales many years before I left the dark side for customer success. And there were two questions that I'd always ask the seller when I was taking over the account. One of them was, what expectations did you set with the customer that we haven't achieved or that they want that we can't currently do? And if I asked the customer the same question, would they back what you just told me? I also think it adds a little bit of value and helps you out if you wanted to record some of those internal conversations as a CYA. But I think in time, CSMs naturally get better at discernment, right? We pick up on irregularities and hearing conversations or speaking cross-functionally, which ultimately helps you ask better questions when taking on new accounts. But once you understand the background of the customer and their goals and those expectations, aligning with them from the very first conversation becomes a lot easier. And admittedly, I think it does need to be as soon as you have that first conversation with them.
I think earlier the better is key. And this, what we've seen in our experiences, this is one of the biggest risk points for churn and poor adoption if you don't get this thing right. Dimple, what have you got to add to that?
I absolutely agree. I think that, at HubSpot, we see that the first year of a customer in their life cycle is very critical. And I think that, one of the things that I thought about here is that it really starts with consistency. Every team member that the customer interfaces with, from sales to onboarding to contract management, we all need to sing the same tune, because ultimately, if we overpromise and underdeliver, and let's say the customer decides to cancel, it impacts all of our numbers. It impacts everyone. You can't think about this selfishly. You have to think about it as like a team effort. And I think that in these instances, it's very important, like Alex said, from day one, like, introduce yourself, let them know what your role is so they cannot make any assumptions around, oh, you're here to solve all my problems. Well, not really. This is my role, and this is where I can help you. And here are other avenues where I can, be able to get you help, so that the customer's not coming in thinking that you're there to solve all their technical challenges. Know that, you're willing to work with them, you're going to advocate for them, but you're not a one-stop shop. They might need to speak to product. They might need to speak to support. All of those avenues are going to come into place, but I think it's very important to, from the very beginning, set those expectations, especially around SLAs, like how soon after they respond can they expect to hear from you. Typically, companies have a 24-hour SLA. Make sure that you instill that by not over-delivering and responding in 10 minutes after each time a customer responds. Like, one of the things we talked about yesterday as we were preparing is use that delay send, because that's really going to allow the customer to get in the rhythm in terms of when they can expect to hear from you.
What kind of how does this play in your world, Mohammed? I mean, are you getting involved early in the sales cycle? Is there some, from a cultural perspective, how does that work in your area of the world?
Thank you, Andrew. I believe, in general, I believe expectations start from marketing even before sales, and marketing set part of the expectation, then sales follow with the customer and set the rest of the expectation, and it all landed in the customer success desk. And I believe start early, start with sales, make the process of the sales handover as part of this expectation setting for the customer. Get engaged with the customer early within the sales process, even before the contract sign. Get to know the customer. Try to set the expectation early, even if the expectation does not meet the customer wants or the wish list, because sometimes customer, what they want is something different than what they need. and they build their expectation based on what they want. So getting involved earlier is really a key. And I've seen a lot of practices here locally in the Middle East that customer success get engaged with the customer even before they sign the contract. So they start building the relation and build the engagement at the early stage. And customer success are overseeing the implementation phase as a project management role. You just oversee all the implementation processes and make sure that what customer promised is delivered, so that they can take it over and continue working with the customer. And I believe communication, and this is something maybe it's a culture thing, but I think we still need to improve our clear communication with customers and not to shy and hide, even if it is the ugly truth. We should say it, because it becomes a common in the region here that if it's gonna hurt the customer, we will hide it now and we'll talk about it later. So we will keep delay till it become a bigger problem. And this is what we are trying to change. And this is it's a culture thing. We don't want to upset the customer. We want to make sure they are satisfied. So we hide it for now. We will find the solution later on. But gets bigger and bigger and bigger till it becomes something that we cannot handle at the end.
So I got my start in tech way back in the I'm not going to say because I'm going to totally date myself, but back when software was installed on-prem and there was a long implementation, and we could really easily hide stuff, right? If things were more complicated, if we made promises that were kind of really towing the line between what we could and couldn't do, we would be able to kind of bury those things in the project implementation itself. You don't have that flexibility anymore. And I 100% agree with you. You can't tell the customer what you think that they want to hear. You are much better off nipping that stuff in the bud right out of the gate, because the longer it takes for you to actually reset those expectations, the harder it's going to be and the more damage you're going to do to your customer and to your customer relationship. Now, a big part of that, though, is, like you all said, getting started early, right? And making sure that if you have to reset expectations, you're doing it early in the relationship. The other thing that's important is if you find yourself, and at least I found this, and I'd like all of you to weigh in on this, because I faced this in every company I worked with. I found, surprisingly, the sales team oversold something. I know that's shocking, right? Totally shocking to hear. But the sales team overpromised something, or maybe even the customer thought they heard something. And you have to, right out of the gate, reset those expectations. And it greases the skids for a churn. But you're better off doing that right out of the gate, or identifying those misstated things, those misstated expectations, so you can go back to sales and say, by the way, you've created a problem. Here's what you should have said, or here's what you said and what we can do, so that they can, fix, that messaging, which is super important. So how do you strike the balance between setting realistic expectations and still creating excitement about your product or services potential value?
I can help you here.
Yeah, go for it, Dimple.
Yeah, I would say, one of the, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but HubSpot has like a culture code, and it's an acronym. It's called HEART, and each of the letters sound for, mean a different word. And T in HEART means transparency. And I really think that transparency is key. When it comes to, if a customer, for example, says like, oh, I was told that it would work this way. And then, you can immediately say, well, from my understanding, that is not a feature yet, but I can find out from product to see if it's on the roadmap. Just be as transparent as possible so that they know that you're getting other team members involved at the same time. Behind the scenes, you can get sales looped in to be like, hey, what did you actually say to the customer? Because this is what they're wanting. And then the salesperson can kind of speak for themselves. I also think that, in other instances, I find that when I'm initially introduced to a customer, they'll think that they're going to have weekly meetings with me. And I will say, no, I have to set that expectation right up front. Like, hey, I meet with my customers pretty much on a quarterly cadence. But, if you want to meet more often, maybe we can do 6 weeks for the next couple of weeks and then move to the regular cadence. So I think, I don't hesitate to just be upfront and as transparent as possible, because I think that in the end, it really pays off and customers appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's important that I love the transparency. I think it's important that they understand what your role is and how you execute that role. And even in the case like what you mentioned, Mohammed, getting involved early, you're not necessarily going to be there to project manage their implementation or their configuration. You're acting kind of more in a program management role, so you can keep an eye on things, so you can begin to establish those relationships with the key stakeholders and understand what's important to them, and begin to build that relationship. Alex, it sounded like you had something to add to that, though.
Yeah, transparency is one way of putting it. I follow the Kim Scott rule of thought of radical candor, right? I remember back in the days of working at Gong, I had a running joke with a lot of my customers after I built a relationship with them that if I turned off the recording mid-meeting, that's when the truth would really come out, and the more PC, honest approach plays, and then you turn on the recording, and then we kind of change the strategy up. But even if it wasn't something like earth-shatteringly big news, or I generally go back to the product isn't doing or can't do what they want to do scenario here, especially when it comes to expectation setting, and there's an expectation from the customer that something can be done, whether it be through an API configuration or just a click path, whatever the case is. And a lot of times there's got to be some dialogue with them that says, listen, I know that this is a big deal for you. I'm going to continue pushing and advocating internally for you. But candidly, it's not a roadmap item because we don't have enough backing from other customers in our clientele that wants this kind of configuration. So you've got to be realistic about roadmaps and timelines and things like that. And I think the moment that you're pretty transparent with them or candid, it becomes a little bit easier.
Now, Mohammed, I understand that that's not necessarily a cultural norm there, but I would assume that when you have that type of situation and you've got to say no, you've got to kind of tell them the real truth. A great strategy that we teach and we coach people on is you should never go in and just say no. You should say the no, but, right?
Yeah.
We got to say no, but here's what we can do. And sometimes you got to go through the 5 whys and better understand what they're trying to accomplish. Because sometimes I've also found, and this was something I used to coach my teams on all the time, when a customer would ask for something, say, okay, well, what's the root? What was the reason behind what they're asking for? Have you done the 5 whys? Have you kind of boiled this down to what they're trying to achieve? Because what we found more times than not was that what they wanted to achieve, we actually could do. We just couldn't do it the way that they maybe were used to doing it.
Yeah. Actually, what the way I recommend this, when you start the engagement with the customer and you start to document the expectation, it's an opportunity for you to understand their requirements, their expectation, and see what are the limitations we have in this kind of expectation, where we can fit, where we cannot, and then if there is any particular area that we cannot fit, and we start to dig in and slice it down and see what is their business objectives, why they want it this way, what is the success criteria for this one, how they want it to work. And then we start to slice it into small chunks. Maybe you will find an opportunity to deliver part of it, not everything. Part of it can be done by your software. So that's an opportunity for you to show support to them. Or maybe you can find that, this is only because of a process they have. It doesn't have to do anything with your product. It's a process. If they tweak their process somehow based on your understanding of the industry, they might solve this problem. They don't need this particular feature or function in the software. And going into the 5 whys, try to keep going. Don't stop, and try to reach to the root of that expectation or that request, because sometimes you will reach to a level where the customer realize that what, you are right, and it's not realistic, and we don't want it this way, we want it this way. And I've been there and I've done it. And the good thing, or what, one of the things that we have in the region, we don't say no, but we don't say no, but we say there is an alternative. We can find a different way. But saying no in the culture is not accepted. People, they don't like to hear it. So you can tell them the opposite, but not saying no. Okay, even if fair. You cannot deliver, if you cannot deliver, there is a way to tell them that we cannot deliver it, but here is an alternative. And being transparent and being honest is a key, because that will keep the relation smooth and keep building that trust relation with the customer.
So in your case, in your part of the world, you can't use the word no. But once again, it's the same concept, right? I don't want to take you down a path where you're going to fail or we're going to fail as partners, but I'm going to suggest a way to do it. And something that I think customers need to remember, and we need to constantly be reminding them of this, especially in subscription services. One of the benefits of subscription services is we're not asking customers, whether it's a product or a service, whether you're selling software or what have you, we are no longer asking customers to put a lot of effort, money up front, right? Because we've come up with this very consistent kind of single code line solution. But the downside of that is you might have to change the way you do things. Right, we can't do everything the way you want. Right, so there's the benefit of the a much lower investment in infrastructure, in people, in software, for example. But the benefit is that, that's the benefit. But the cost of that is that you might have to adjust the way you do things. And this is also why having a change management strategy is so important, right? Because you can't just turn this thing on and say, okay, just do it this way now. So I would love if any of you have an experience, love to talk about an experience that you had where misaligned expectations led to a challenging situation with a customer. How did you address it, and what did you learn from it? Who wants to? Anybody have something? Want to start?
I can go on. I think honesty and transparency is key. Be honest with the customer. Go with whatever the situation is, but don't go with the problem. You need to think of the solution and go proposing the solution before even talk about the problem. We have this request. We cannot deliver in this quarter, and because of 1, 2, 3. But here is our plan. We are going into this process. We gonna deliver this feature or function in phases in the coming month or two. So go with the solution before going with the problem, and that's most of the time works well with the customer, and they will appreciate that. They will appreciate you are honest and you are telling them the truth, and you have a plan for what you're gonna deliver to them.
It's funny. I that's how I've coached my teams before. I'm like, and I know some people hate hearing this, but I used to tell people, don't just bring me problems, bring me solutions. And what I've always meant by that was I'm not expecting you to solve the problem on your own, but at least have some ideas. Don't just show up with a problem. Show up with some ideas on how we get around it, how we solve that problem. And it's the same thing with your customer. Your customer doesn't want to hear, like you said, they don't want to hear you coming to them with a problem and nothing to suggest to solve it. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was thinking about an example, like a real life moment from my time. And we were going through a renewal. It was with a 7-figure account. It was a massive logo for the business, one of those no-lose accounts, just plastered all over the website, that kind of scenario. And our product team had made some commitments during the renewal negotiations to enhance some of the API capabilities so they could push data from their software to from our software to their CRM. So that enhancement was the differentiator between us securing that renewal or losing the business long term. And so with the commitment made, my customer then signed the renewal, trusting that our product team in good faith would go ahead and make some of those necessary enhancements. And what we learned is enhance is a pretty arbitrary term in the scheme of things if it's not perfectly defined. So once our product team enhanced that API functionality and saw some pretty strong improvements, we assumed we were good to go. And good to go is pretty arbitrary too in the scheme of things. So long story short, there are about 4 months post-renewal where I was basically just sitting in the pocket trying to deal with damage control to maintain that relationship. And there was a period of time where they felt duped, like that they were told one thing, they expected one thing, ultimately wasn't delivered the same way that they thought. And so in that time, you learn pretty quickly, you got to lead with empathy and work with what their feedback is and try to deliver that internally and cross-functionally. So we worked to progress other use cases that we knew were priorities for them as an effort to get some quick wins and drum up some excitement for the partnership. And on the back end, we're escalating with product to get back to work and ultimately find some kind of middle ground, which is what we did. But it took a lot of hard work and honest conversations that got us to the point of feeling duped to, again, trusting us and being excited to be in a partnership with us long term.
Well, and I think what you guys probably also learned is that, and you alluded to it there, ambiguity is so freaking dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. You got to spell stuff out.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why, we prescribe to the whole success plan concept. You got to lay things out, be really specific, especially when you are trying to manage expectations. That specificity can mean the difference between, like you said, a renewal and a churn. Dimple, have you got a situation you want to share with folks?
Yes, I do. So my situation was like, it was like, at HubSpot, I have like 150 customers. So not all customers want to meet with me all the time as much as I want to meet with them. So this was a customer that had been recently assigned to me in the last couple of months, and I hadn't yet had a chance to connect with them. And so we had our initial meeting with them, and the customer came hot out of the gates. I basically said, hello. And then they initially just kind of went right into their agenda of all their questions that they had. And they sent me a list of 25 questions, which was totally flustering in the moment. And so in that moment, I had to take action. And I basically realized quickly that, hey, they don't even know what my role is. They don't know what I can help with, what I can't, that kind of stuff. And so I immediately had to say, okay, let's take a step back and let me set expectations. And I had a slide that I usually show my customers about my role, how often I meet with customers, what I can help with in terms of HubSpot related best practices. And in the end, I was able to salvage the meeting by setting expectations halfway through. I told the customer, usually if you have a bunch of questions, it helps if you send them in advance, a couple of days, so I can come in prepared to be able to answer those. And I think in the end, that situation was pretty escalated, and I was able to resolve it just by setting those expectations. Hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to advocate. If there's questions I can't answer, I will get those answers for you. But I need you to work with me. I need you to give me those questions in advance. I need you to realize what my role is and differentiate my role from our technical support team. And so I think in the end, it ended up going okay. And I was able to follow up with some of their questions. And since then, they seem to be in a much better place. So,
and I think that's a really good point. Before we're gonna take some questions from the audience, and I have one question to tee that off. But I think it's really important that setting and managing expectations begins with what your role is.
Totally.
Right? What you're there to do, how you're there to help them. And I love that you have a slide. Hopefully that slide that explains what you do and what you're here to do is something that you do the first time you meet with them. Or even if you get involved, and I'm a huge fan of, depending on the size of the deal, getting involved in the latter stages of the sales cycle, you should have 5 minutes in one of those meetings to say, hey, I'm your customer success manager. Here's my role. Right? If anything, what I have found is introducing somebody in the post-sales world into the sales process has only benefited the sales process. Hey, the customer understands it. I'm here to make sure that all these promises that are being made by the sales team are understood by the post-sales team. It's a critical role. But we're going to get to questions. If any of you have any of the audience have any questions, please go ahead and use that Q&A button to ask your questions or upvote the ones that you see already in that list that you really want to hear answers for. We will be going until 1:15 and we'll answer as many questions as possible. Although, Alex, I understand you need to go here at the top of the hour, but we will get through as many questions as possible. But my first question to you is, for all of you, is what strategies have you found effective for realigning expectations mid-engagement when customers' needs or product capabilities change? Who wants to volunteer to start with that one?
I can go. Sorry,
okay,
Alex.
Yeah.
I think communication and flexibility is important here for aligning and realigning. And as soon as you create your engagement plan and you set the expectation and you work with the customer, the frequent visit of your plan and your engagement plan and your expectation, the customer expectation and the delivery is important, because you can figure out or you can identify the change required early on the process, and you can identify when and how you can accommodate that change. And having a plan that it's for the coming 2 quarters, that it has all the customer expectation and all the engagement, and some changes happen to your product roadmap, you are aware that this change might affect my engagement with the customer or not. If it will affect, then I will go early and I will notify the customer. I will make them aware that this is gonna happen and we have to realign, we have to change our engagement plan, and this is the new plan, or this is the proposed new plan. Being proactive and well prepared in advance, you can identify the changes required from the customer early, and you can mitigate that, and you can always realign your plan based on your product roadmap.
And like you said earlier, it's important to show up with some solutions. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of not necessarily just showing up with one solution, but potentially showing up with multiple solutions and getting the customer to provide you with, what they believe would be best for them, right? So when my daughter was 4 and we would get her dressed in the morning, we wouldn't say she wanted to be independent. I'm Emma, I'm independent, right? We would give her choices. We wanted her to be independent. Now I'm feeling the pain of that. 15, she thinks she's an adult, but it's important. She needs that independence. So I didn't go into a room and say, okay, what do you want to wear today? I said, okay, here's your choice. You can wear shorts or a skirt, right? I'm giving you choices, but I'm limiting your choices, right? I'm showing up with some solutions, but I'm keeping those solutions in a box. And when she said, I want to wear the skirt, hey, she made that decision, even though I guided her to that. And so she bought off on that. Alex, Dimple, what do you got to add to that?
I think tactically, if you look at it, for me, it's business reviews. And I think if you can include an executive sponsor on those calls, it's even more impactful. So having executives across CS or even product to discuss roadmap and timelines, show that your business hears the customer, understands what their needs are, have subsequent product-led listening sessions where the customer can either influence the roadmap or the functionality that is rolling out, and maybe even host another strategic alignment call if the strategy or the goals that have been the foundation of the relationship and that partnership you've had so far changes. But I think it's important to remember to be communicative and involve the customer where possible so they feel like they're involved with the future of what the business is going to be doing.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the business reviews and quite frankly the kickoff call are super important. Just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, because a lot of misset expectations come from people. Besides that rare time when sales missets expectations, and I'm saying that very facetiously, that the customer creates this idea. They have this idea in their mind, or they're not on the same page as their boss, the key stakeholder. And so those business reviews and those kickoff meetings at least give you an idea whether or not everybody's aligned at the customer. Dimple, what do you got to add?
Yeah, I would say, another thing that when it comes to alignment is, sometimes if you have if a customer, say, purchases Marketing Hub at HubSpot, they might just be, I think sometimes as a CSM, it's also our job to challenge them to use the product more. It's like, use all the bells and whistles that they've purchased. And sometimes customers will come to me and say hey, I don't know what I don't know. And it's like Alex was saying, the executive business review is a great time to double down on where there's opportunity. And if customers are challenged with how to adopt that into their process, then I love pulling in product, because I think from a customer perspective, it feels like there's a whole company there helping support them, or at least a whole team behind them. And it's not just one person they're interfacing with the whole time. They have product for this specialty or that specialty that you're looping in. And that allows them to feel supported by more than just one team member. And also it helps to drive usage and makes them stickier when it comes to renewal time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, let's take some. Okay, so that was my question from the Q&A. Let's actually get to some audience questions. Our first question here comes from Martin. Martin, thank you for the question. We touched on this a little bit, but I want to know if you have some specific strategies here. What's been your best approach to when you realize sales to set expectations with customers that your org hasn't yet been able to meet?
I mean, there's only so much as a CSM we can do, right? This is where I come back to the escalate, and do it early and do it quickly with the right personas involved. Like, if there is a functionality that doesn't exist, or if there is an expectation that it's been set that they can accomplish a certain thing with the platform that we can't, then either sales leadership should be involved to discuss how we backtrack that, product gets involved to talk through how we're working to make that feature or that functionality exist for the customer, whatever the case is. I can't fix that problem, right? That is not a CSM capability. So I think escalate where you can, ensure that the right people are involved to answer those types of questions, be present, right? Listen, lead with empathy, take that listen first approach. But ultimately, it's not me writing code, right? And they damn sure don't want it to be me doing that either.
No.
I also think that we need to come prepared with showing other solutions. So at HubSpot, we have a whole marketplace. Yeah. With tons of different products that integrate with HubSpot. So if we don't have a solution that's out of the box, more than likely, whatever they're looking to do can be done through an app that integrates directly into our product. So it's important to come, when a customer is coming to you with these types of questions, to be able to source that, not just from product, not just from sales, but your fellow customer success managers. They're interfacing with, hundreds of customers on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. So it's important to be able to use them to be able to understand, hey, what would you do in this type of situation, and come with a potential solution.
Yeah, alternatives. And Mohammed, I know you already talked about the 5 whys and the importance of really digging down into why this thing is important to the customer. You got anything to add?
No, actually, getting involved with the customer early can avoid, or can save you from going through this problem that they were over promised that they, the product deliver or provide X and Y, and sometimes it's really important to do a kind of discovery with the customer, even if you have, or if the sales hand over all the expectation to you. You go back to the customer and say, okay, now we received your list of expectation or list of requirements, but here now to start our engagement, we are doing a discovery session. And this discovery session, you can go through all the list they have provided to the sales, and you start to limit their expectation based on what you can and what you cannot. And that can set some expectation when you start with them that, yeah, okay, so we have some limitation here and we need to think about it, or there are some alternatives, or there is the feature or the function is coming on the roadmap, but it's going to take 2 quarters. So start your engagement with customer by doing a discovery session to set the expectation based on what they have provided to sales. Might help avoid such a problem with customers.
Yeah, makes sense. I have one more thing to add, and I know everything that we've been talking about is very customer facing, but you also cannot forget to go back to sales and explain to them why what they said has created a challenge. Right? You are going to continue to get those coming over unless you sit down with sales and we need to employ empathy, and we need to do it in the right way. Right? This can't be a, hey, jerk, you told them the wrong thing. It needs to be an education session, right? It needs to be a, hey, listen, I want you to understand the expectation that you set with this customer has created a challenge for us, and this is what the challenge results in, right? It results in more effort. It results in a dissatisfied customer. It could result in disengagement. It can make adoption hard. There are so many problems, right? And we're all on the same team here. So, what we can do is X, Y, and Z. So it's really important to close that loop, with your customer. Once you've solved the customer, with your sales team, once you've solved that customer problem, go to the root cause of what created that problem and try and fix that. Martin, thank you for your question. Our next question comes from Cindy. Cindy, thank you for joining us and thank you for the question. What do you do when your predecessor, as in the previous CSM, has set unrealistic expectations and you are having to reset those with the customer? That's never happened to anybody, has it? Who wanted, by the way, to my panelists, you can hit the answer live button, and I can, if you got something here that you just, some sort of story or idea you want to tell for any of these. But who wants to jump in on that? The predecessor's unrealistic expectations.
I'm living through that right now. I mentioned, I just started at Samsara in the last 5 months, and on an incredible team for what it's worth. But one of the CSMs that just got promoted to a leadership role, I'm taking over his accounts. There's a reason the kid got promoted to a leadership role. It's because he's damn good at his job and he's met expectations and exceeded them in a lot of ways. Part of that means, though, that he just went through a fairly large renewal with an account that I've taken over. And part of that renewal meant multiple calls every week. It wasn't like a bi-weekly or monthly thing anymore. It was engaging product. It was cross-functional alignment across the board. And now new guy Alex comes into the mix, and it's like, all right, what are you going to offer us? And there was a reality that set in when we had the kickoff call and the introduction, which was, hey, now that your renewal is complete, we're not going to have 3 meetings a week, right? Like, we're not going to have product engaged weekly with you all anymore. I'm happy to continue this over the next 4-week window. So there is a little bit of a trailing effect here, and it's not just day one, it's an abrupt end. But after this month, like, it's going to go closer to a bi-weekly situation. You all are comfortable with the platform. We can still have these strategic calls and conversations and align elsewhere, but it's not going to be 4 times a week. And
you got to wean them off that approach. Yeah,
exactly right. And I think 5 minutes after that, they weren't thrilled, but within the hour of that conversation, they realized, all right, like, we don't need to have this many conversations anymore. So again, it's honesty, it's transparency, it's some radical candor, and you get by.
Yeah, and it can be a tough conversation, but at the end of the day, the less you get sucked into those needless meetings, the better you're going to be able to serve your customer. The more time you're giving back to them.
Yep.
We should always be, and this is probably a topic. This is a topic for a different mastermind, but we should always try and be in control of our own calendars, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because the more control we have, the better we can serve our customers, our company, ourselves. Mohammed, Dimple, anything to add? Any other suggestions, ideas for Cindy on that type of situation where the previous CSM has set unrealistic expectations?
Well, I think for when a CSM in a previous CSM sets unrealistic expectations, I mean, we've all had that happen, and I think it's really important that from the very first meeting we go in and share what your role is, how often you'll be meeting with customers, and then if they say, well, I used to meet with so and so more often, then set those expectations that, okay, well, if you want, we could maybe meet monthly for a couple of months and then trail off into like a quarterly meeting from there forward. But I think it's really important to then also understand, like, okay, well, what are they hoping to accomplish through these meetings? Like, do they, like I usually in my meetings that I have with customers, I go through usage, I go through product updates, and there's only so much of that you can do if you're meeting every week or every 2 weeks. And so it's like understanding from them, like, what are some of the agenda items that they're looking to cover? And maybe some of that stuff can be done asynchronously. You don't have to be on a call with them going through those agenda items. They can share their questions with you. You can communicate via email and alleviate some of those needs that they have in terms of always having that face time.
Well, I think it's a really good narrative when you spin it as, hey, I'm trying to be cognizant of your time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do this for you, right? In order to do this, I want to minimize the amount of time that you're spending with me. So let's make sure that when we do spend time together, it's as valuable as a valuable use of your time, right? Remember, it's not about us; it's about them. It's about the customer. Mohammed, what you have to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I just agree with what everything said. Honesty and communication is important here. And being the new customer success manager handling this account, you just go with what you're gonna deliver, what you're gonna do for them. Regardless of what the previous customer success did or done with them. You go with, okay, this is my approach. This is how we're gonna work together. I have your engagement plan. I have your list of expectation or whatever you have, and we're gonna work together on this. This is the new plan and how we can work together. What do you think? And, just let them get engaged and to take the decision how they want to deal with me, because I'm the new customer success manager, and then we'll take it from there. But being following the previous customer success manager with unrealistic expectations, sometimes it might overkill the relation, and it might fire back on us as a new customer success manager for that account.
Yeah. So yeah, and you got to deal with, that's always a challenge. That's always a risk. At least you're in a position where you hopefully can pick up the pieces, right? You didn't create the problem, so be the one that solves the problem.
Totally.
Right. Awesome, Cindy. Thank you for the question. Our next question, where I like this one. Love to hear what you all have to say about this. Lindsay, thank you for joining us. Lindsay asks, this may vary from place to place on who should own what, but do you think deciding on goals for an implementation and outcomes in initial onboarding should fall with sales or customer success?
Sales. Because at the end of the day, right? Like here's my theory on this is, if you are value-based selling, right? If you are selling a platform to a customer, you have to understand where the pain points are. You have to understand what you're discovering and what you're solving for. If that's the case, then we can put together some kind of thesis or theory on, here is what my business is trying to accomplish. Here are the goals that are in place for success. And then you drive your demos and your product discussions and everything else, your sales process around solving those needs. And that way, during implementation, we can validate. And then post-validation to CSM, we can also validate that, like, hey, we're still trending in the right direction. We understand what we're trying to accomplish. These are our goals for our success plan and for our QBR and for our renewal plan. Like that, okay. That to me, you feel like is the best play.
Okay, Darth Vader. Listen, I think though that has to come. I mean, you talk about coming from the dark side. So yeah. I think that has to come with some caveats though. Okay, I agree with you. In a perfect world, I think that's great. I think that's important. But I think that customer success needs to at least be in the communication loop to make sure that the expectations that sale is setting during that during their conversations are in line with the reality of what customer success and post sales can deliver.
Sure. I don't disagree. I think that's why early involvement's important too, right?
Yes.
Which we talked about enough today, but
exactly.
yeah.
And Alex, I know you need to bail here in a couple of minutes. So thank you again for spending some time with us. Mohammed, what do you got what do you think? Should it fall within sales or CS, or as I proposed with Darth Vader here, a kind of amalgamation into a bridge between the two?
Yeah, I think it needs to be between both sales and CS. We need to make sure that what sales promising is realistic, and what they have documented with the customer is something we can deliver. And that's why I'm a big fan of being involved in halfway the sales process, not even at the late stage. Halfway, customer success need to be introduced to the customer, and they need to be present in the meeting with customers, and they need to have a say. They need to be involved in the discussion. They need to understand the requirements. They need to understand the expectation, and they need to be involved in setting the expectation and making sure that this is something we can deliver, or if not, this is something we cannot deliver now in the long term, in a year time, because based on our roadmap, this is going to be in a year time. Sales will sell a product based on a roadmap of 2 years. So sales will sell a product that, based on a function that it will come after 3-4 quarters, but they will sell it today based on that roadmap. So I think
which is fine. I understand that, and I can't believe I'm saying this. As living in a post sales world, my attitudes have changed on this. As long as we're all upfront and honest and communicate, amongst ourselves as well as with the customer. Hey, what you want is not slated to be on the roadmap until Q4, and so just as long. I mean, it's on the roadmap. And the intent is there to get it developed, just so you understand, though, we're not going to be able to roll out with it right out of the gate.
Yeah, and that's why customer success need to be involved, because we set that kind of expectation. Sales might, to get the deal, they might not say it, so we need to be there to say it.
Well, sales may set the expectation, but we're the ones that have to deliver on it, right? So if you're going to have me deliver on something that's a future, that's outside the realm of what we do now, we got to at least have the conversation. I've been in situations where we have bent over backwards to land a customer that is not necessarily in our wheelhouse, that is not necessarily a good fit. But there's a good reason to do it, because maybe we want to get into their vertical, maybe there's something we want to learn from doing business with them. But if we're going to do that, sales needs to be, have a collaborative engagement with post sales, and say, so that we can have a conversation, and that we can all go in eyes wide open, and understand that, we're not doing this because we're going to get a bunch of revenue out of this customer, because quite frankly, we're going to probably lose money on this customer with all of the hoops that we're going to have to jump through. But let's all, go in with eyes wide open, with the understanding that we're doing this, we're making this sacrifice, because that's literally what you're doing. You are making a sacrifice, right? You are sacrificing the time of product teams. You're sacrificing the extra effort of your post-sales teams, because you're trying to learn something. You're trying to evolve your product. You're trying to evolve your go-to-market. And that's okay to do, as long as we're all on the same page. Dimple, before we move on, you got anything to add to this?
Well, I have a little different perspective here.
Okay.
So at HubSpot, customer success doesn't do onboarding. So we have a whole onboarding team. And usually customer success can attend onboarding meetings. And I think it's really important to attend like the first kickoff meeting, where you really learn from the customer, like what their goals are, what are they trying to achieve. And I think in that instance, like the reason for using HubSpot, what do they see as success? And I think it's important to ask those pertinent questions from the very beginning. Like, if a year from now, in a year from now, when your renewal comes up, how are you going to measure success? And it's important to understand those things by attending those onboarding meetings. But I think ultimately, when it comes to like implementation and goals, I think it's a combined effort between our onboarding team as well as customer success. Usually sales just sort of does a sale and kind of hands it off to onboarding. And then usually CS and onboarding are playing a pretty big role in that. Although I'm not actually onboarding the customer, I'm just sort of, listening to the meetings and understanding their goals. And then once they graduate from onboarding is when, I'm their main point of contact. So,
yeah, but I mean, I would argue that onboarding is part of customer success. I mean, does your onboarding team report up to your head of customer success?
Yes, they are part of customer success.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lindsay, thank you for the question. Our next question comes from Michael. Michael, a permanent fixture at these webinars. Always great to see you, Michael. Michael asks, going off Mohammed's comments on setting expectations, I think that CS being involved in the final stages of the sales process to speak to the soon-to-be customer is key. Do you all think should this interaction be done at the director VP level in CS or by the potential CSM that would own the account, and why? I definitely have an opinion on this, but Mohammed, is it something that your leader does, or is it something, if you're targeted as the CSM, is it something that you do?
No, the assigned customer success manager is the one who needs to be involved. If those are the regular meetings with sales, if there is a meeting where the customer leaders and customer stakeholders are joining, yeah, definitely I will get my VP or director to join in that meeting. But regular meetings, the CSM needs to be there because, you need to build the relation and you need to set the expectation. So you are the right person to be there as a customer success manager, gonna be assigned to that account.
Yeah, 100%. Dimple?
I also think that by the customer success manager joining, it doesn't, like if a director or VP were to join, it almost undercuts the role of the customer success manager and, the responsibility they have to work with the customer. So I think really the CSM should be the one that attends those meetings and understands, their needs. So I agree with what Mohammed said.
Yeah, I think the CSM definitely needs to attend, period. Right? No matter what. But I agree with you, Mohammed, depending on who is attending the meeting, or maybe the size of the deal, the strategic nature of the deal, then in addition to that customer success manager, a leader should be involved as well. So whenever I had deals, I would put my point person would be on that kickoff call. And depending on who was showing up, I may show up, but I was there to be a fly on the wall. I expected my point person, whether it was in the services business, the project manager, or in the customer success side of the world, a customer success manager, my job was not to replace them, not to talk over them. My job was to be there as a supporting cast member and just at least have a presence so that the leaders from the other side of the leaders from the customer organization understood that the executive leadership from the vendor is involved and in tune with what's going on. So thanks for the question, Michael. Michael has a follow-up question here. How have each of you handled overzealous customers that go over your head to execs when they don't get what they want? Oh, that's never happened either, has it?
Yeah, I mean, being at HubSpot, I feel like I have, in my time here, I probably have had at least one or two customers that have threatened to go to our CEO, to kind of, if they're unhappy with something that happened, or if we're not able to to get them, if they want to cancel mid-contract or something, they usually threatened to go to the CEO. And usually in those instances, I think it's best to not hesitate to involve your manager. Obviously, you're not going to be able to involve a CEO of a $30 billion company, but I think that, it's okay to loop in your manager. And I think in cases where they do go to the CEO, usually the CEO tells whoever the director on the team is to kind of handle it. So oftentimes it just ends up being a threat that doesn't actually happen, come through. So, yeah.
Well, and you have the benefit of, Yamini, having been in customer success. Your CEO was formerly your chief customer officer, yes, and was chief customer officer before that at Dropbox. And so, you want to escalate that to our CEO. Well, by the way, she's going to probably kick back down to me anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, usually I think the best answer when customers come and say, I want to escalate this to your manager, with all means, be my guest. I will set up a meeting next week for you and for my manager, and let's discuss it. I just, when you are positive with the customer, even if they are desperate or they are upset, be positive and show respect to what they want, and tell them, yeah, please be my guest. I will set up the meeting with my manager, with the director, with the VP, whoever you want, and let's discuss it, and let's see what we can find or how we can plan something that fit and serve your needs.
Right.
And usually, the customer will feel more relaxed when you talk to them in this way, and they will start to rethink of, do they need really to escalate this, or it's just because they are upset.
Yeah, sometimes they just want to get some stuff off their chest. The other thing that I've sometimes coached my folks on is when a customer is asking to escalate, and it's something we also teach, that actually can slow down the resolution process, right? So you actually might not, if you let me kind of work things myself in the background, you may find that I'm gonna get you to a resolution a lot quicker than pulling in executives, because we got executives that are responsible for their attention a mile wide and about an inch deep. So they don't necessarily have the time. And it's not like I pick up the phone and say, hey, can you make some time? Right? We may be able to make some time, but it's going to be 2 weeks from now, because that's what their schedule allows. So if you let me work this, and you let me deal with my own internal contacts, I'm likely going to come to a solution sooner than when we can get on the phone with your customer. So, Michael, thank you for the question. Our next answer comes from Michaela. Hopefully, Michaela, I'm pronouncing that correctly. Michaela would love to hear experiences on handling expectations on delivery dates when delays persist from the product or engineering side. So for me, I've had to deal with this a lot. One of the first things that you can do to deal with delays and delivery dates is to pad every delivery date that product gives you. If product says they're going to have it done, in April, say it's going to be done sometime in Q2. If product says it's going to be done in a month, say it's going to be done in about two to 3 months, right? So right out of the gate, you got to sandbag. You got to sandbag anything that product and engineering throws at you, because in most cases you're very smart people, but sometimes they think they're smarter than they are. And they also don't figure in things like other stuff that pops up, or things that their managers, their bosses throw at them. What other Dimple, looked like that's a strategy that you used in the past?
Yes, definitely sandbag. I would always say pad the dates. Don't ever say when exactly. For example, like if I need to involve my contract manager and they're going to share a quote, I'm not going to say when they're going to share. I'm not going to say Monday. I'll say sometime next week, so that I give myself, at least for someone I work with closely, at least a couple of days for them to respond. When it comes to, like I used to work for an org where we had deliverables where we had to, deliver on like survey results, and we had a whole team that kind of came up with the insights, and it was always so critical because customers expect the survey results on a specific day. And so it's so important, I think, to do like expectation management with them, but also with your team. Hey, like, when are you going to have that done? Because it's, this is when the customer is expecting it. Are you going to be able to deliver it by this day? I think it's so important to be able to have like tasks or whatever system that you use so that everyone's held accountable. It's not just like your neck on the line. Everyone's held accountable in terms of when things are due, so that if something isn't delivered on time, it's everyone knows kind of where things kind of fell through, and you're able to set those expectations up front. So
yeah, I think having a sandbox is the recipe. Should always have it in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Sandbag, sandbag, sandbag. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Michaela, for that question. I think we got time for one more here. This is an interesting one from Alexandria. Alexandria asks, how can we best re-engage a customer that we have inherited from another CSM when the client has become accustomed to being left on their own devices and are not receptive to QBRs or willing to collaborate on strategy calls?
This is my bread and butter.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what you got to say.
So I think it's so important to just always be trying. So, try different strategies, use different emails. I think one of the things that you can do that can really hook them, think about all the hooks that when you've been successful, come up with some interesting subject lines. I find that look at the customer's usage and show them areas of opportunity. If you've seen, for example, on my end, like their email health decline, or their sales team, they suddenly have 5 unassigned seats, pick up on those clues and don't be afraid to try different strategies. And I also think that usually, in your account, you might have one POC. Well, look to see who's logging in if you are able to track that, and reach out to multiple POCs. And I find that other thing that works for me is don't be afraid to pick up the phone, call them. Just give them a call. It's not necessarily cold calling. I call it warm calling because they're an active customer. So give them a call, leave a message, send them a follow-up email saying, following up on my voicemail. And I find that oftentimes those strategies have worked for me to be able to really engage with a big percentage of my book of business. And I think sometimes, just sending out a generalized email or template isn't going to work, but you need to really customize it to be able to get them to be like, oh, this sounds interesting. Let me get on a call with them.
Yeah, I think probably what I believe is using sales to get you in is the best way, because sales, they have their contacts, they have their connections. And, if the introduction comes from sales to that level of stakeholders, and then internally they will introduce you to the point of contact, that would work. And usually I use sales to get me in if a customer is not listening or not responding to me, or, I'm newly assigned to this customer and I can't get hold of them. Usually I use sales to get me in, whether in person or virtually, by email or by a Zoom call, or sales, they have their own way and their own contacts that they can get you in easily.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely, if you are having a really hard time getting a hold of somebody, sales is a great source. But back to also what Dimple was saying, I think it's really important that you are creating a narrative, especially when they've gone dark on you, of hey, I want to talk to you about something that's going to help you. Right? This isn't about me checking off a box. Right? If you are saying something like, hey, I need to talk to you because my boss expects that I talk to you on a quarterly basis, it's not about you, okay? It's about them. So what can you do to sweeten the pot? What can you do to entice them to talk to you? And that's not going to be a what's in it for you. It's going to be a what's in it for them, right? So maybe it's a benchmark. Maybe it's a, hey, I'm seeing this metric that doesn't look right, or I think you're missing out on an opportunity to get more value out of the platform. So super important. And with that, and offer them an Amazon gift card from Michael. We've come to the end of our time together today. I want to say how awesome our conversation has been, but hey, what matters most is what you all think. So I kindly ask you to share your valuable feedback on LinkedIn, tagging me or our guests, or Success Hacker or Success Coaching. A big thank you to our amazing panelists, as well as Alex, who bailed on us, for generously sharing their ideas, thoughts, insights, and best practices, even though he's a Green Bay Packers fan. I want to leave you with this one thought, though. Exceptional customer success managers understand they don't have all the answers, but they sure know where to find them. And that's why we created this event, the CSM Mastermind, to tap into the collective knowledge and experience of our community to support everybody's growth. Remember to sign up and mark your calendars for our next event on August 21st, when we'll be talking about fast-tracking your professional growth. Until then, make sure to make space for yourself and your mindset every single day. Have a great rest of your week and month, everybody. See you soon.